of Security Studies. Good afternoon, Mr. Cilliers. Thank you for your time on the News Today desk.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Jakkie, Burundi is now a political crisis that really threatens to become ethnicized. This will surely weigh heavily on delegates, especially given the decision that the Peace and Security Council wants to authorize the deployment of troops to Burundi.
Yes, Burundi certainly is going to be probably where most of the media attention is going to be. My understanding is, we also know, of course, that recently the UN Security Council ambassadors have paid a visit to Burundi and then went on to Addis Ababa, where they have met with their counterparts at the Peace and Security Council and had deliberations. So what we're all looking forward to is what will happen at the Executive Council of Foreign Ministers later this week, as well as at the summit, because if the African Union wants to implement its decision to deploy a 5,000 person peacekeeping force into Burundi, it needs a decision by the Assembly of Heads of State.
And that points us to another question. What's the role of the United Nations in all of this, Jakkie? We know that the United Nations Security Council is yet to formally endorse the PSC decision, but it's not yet clear why it's taking this long or why it's been delayed until now.
Well, you are quite correct, and that is that for the African Union to act, it needs an authorization. Now, this can be a formal support to the AU mission, or at least saying we support the African Union. A big issue here, I think what the UN Security Council wants to do is to wait for a decision by the African Union, and it will then endorse or support the African Union decision, because the African Union is on the lead on Burundi, and the UN Security Council is largely acting in support of the African Union.
Jakkie, very quickly, the controversial tenure of Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe as AU chairperson, well, this comes to an end this month already. Now, Zimbabwean media, of course, claiming that Mugabe leaves a lasting impression, but also the term of office for the current AU Commission also comes to an end, and new elections are due for June or July this year, I believe. How crucial is it that our leadership is chosen on the basis of competency if we want the AU Commission to realize its mandate and bring tangible change to those who need it the most on the ground?
Most of the African Union ceremonial positions, and Zimbabwe occupied, President Mugabe occupied the most important ceremonial position, which is the rotating chair from one assembly to the other. These positions go by rotation. So it is rotated between the 5 regions of the African Union. So, and this is really based on the principle of equity and fairness. And that's why I think there are many countries in Africa that are not very happy, like the case was previously with Sudan, when a country that is under sanctions or that is not doing that well comes to chair the African Union. But those positions are ceremonial. They send a message, but they're in actual fact not that important. The most important function of President Mugabe was to open and close a number of meetings, and that his foreign and minister and ambassador chair various meetings. I think much more substantive in terms of African Union elections will be that during this summit, all 15 members of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union are up for election. This is quite new. There are, in other words, 3 from every of Africa's 5 regions that are up for elections. And then we're all starting to look forward to what's going to happen June, July, with the election of possibly a new chairperson for the chairperson of the Commission of the African Union. It depends whether Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is going to stand again or is going to come back to South Africa after her first term.
Thank you, Mr. Cilliers, for your time on the SABC News Desk. Always a pleasure having him on the news desk. Let's move on to some other news now. At least 25